the top quarterbacks in this upcoming 2022 NFL draft. We're going to rank them. And I just want to give a plug into Chris Sims. I think, at least amongst the media members, he is the best quarterback evaluator. And he released his top 5.
Is that because he had Zach Wilson number 1 last year?
No, that's because he was right about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in 2018. Right. In 2017, he said Mahomes should have been the number 1 pick. So he has a track record of being right on quarterbacks.
What did he have Deshaun in that list? Did he have him number 2?
He might have had him 2 or 3. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I hope he had him 2.
I hope so too, for his credibility.
I'm gonna look it up.
But in 2019, which was not a good quarterback draft. No, in 2019 wasn't a good quarterback draft class. He I think he didn't have Dwayne Haskins as a number 1 guy either. I think Drew Lock was high for him though, which wasn't correct in hindsight. But in 2020, he had Joe Burrow 1, Herbert 2. Tua was like 4.
He was 4
behind Jordan Love.
Yeah,
interesting.
So his credibility is already in the trash with me.
Not really. I mean, having 2 or 4 at that point was a hot take.
It was definitely a hot take.
It was a hot take.
Yeah, and still a hot take. It's kind of poop, actually.
You mean behind Herbert and Burrow? It's a hot take.
I'm taking him over Jordan Love, but
well, okay, maybe that's like the one guy.
Yeah,
Chris Sims
but
missed
still,
on,
if you're off by that,
the 1 and 2 were consensus. I mean, for him at that point, it wasn't.
His 2018 list is absolutely brilliant. Lamar, Josh Allen, Baker, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah, he's nailed these quarterback evaluations. That's why I respect his opinion. And his top 5.
Yeah, I was gonna say
5 was Ritter, 4 was Sam Howell, 3 was Malik Willis, 2 was Kenny Pickett, and 1 was Matt Corral.
Wow.
Now, what do you guys think? I mean, who's your number 1 quarterback? Where do you disagree with him? What do you think about these quarterbacks?
I'm shocked Matt Corral's number 1 for him.
I'm sorry, you said Matt Corral
is 1. Kenny Pickett's 2. Willis is 3. Howell is 4. Ritter is 5.
Okay. I must say I'm horrible at looking things up. I can't find his 2017 list. I can't do it. I just it's comical at this point. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Dude, I'm really looking. It showed me 2018, 2019, 2020. Like
2017 is harder to find because
oh my God.
2017.
Bro, it's like your first time using Google. Like, it's just every show you can't find it. And then you told us what was the last week?
The Miami University thing. That was terrible. Chris Sims, look, listen. I literally Googled Chris Sims QB rankings 2017. What else am I supposed to say?
No, I'll tell you this. The reason why it's hard to find is because Chris Sims in 2017 had a podcast with Adam Lefkoe on Bleacher Report. He left that and went to NBC Sports. And all those episodes that he did with Adam Lefkoe, you kind of can't find them on the internet.
Interesting.
It's very hard to find. So that's why they're only like you can only find it for 2018 up.
So apparently from this little blurb I'm seeing, he had Watson as his top guy, followed by Trubisky at 2.
Okay.
So
and
Mahomes at 3.
Mahomes.
I'm assuming. I can't see. I only see a little blurb.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, let's just talk about these quarterbacks.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's go.
I was surprised, or I'm surprised here. I didn't see his quarterback. I saw his wide receiver list. We'll get into probably in a little bit. But Matt Corral number 1. I'm shocked. Matt Corral was the 4th quarterback I want to say I evaluated going through this process, and I believe he's right around. I'm not really sure if he's 4 or 5 for me, but he's not 1, 2, or 3. I thought Matt Corral had a lot of his RPO heavy system, right? It was a lot of quick reads. It reminded me a lot of Miami's offense last season. Miami Dolphins, that being.
I think he had the fewest dropback. I think he ranked 120 something in terms of dropbacks in CFB.
Yeah, he has the stature, 6'2", 212, ran a 4.8 40. His first season in 2019 wasn't great. He only completed 59% of his passes. This was his sophomore year, but broke out in 2020 in a big way. Completed 71% of his passes, over 3,300 yards, good touchdown interception ratio. The stats dropped a bit this past season, but overall still good. But just looking at his film and the system he was in didn't tell me that he was I think he could come into the league and in the right system he could play well. I don't think I ever see him as a top 10, top 12 type of guy, which other quarterbacks on my list I think have that potential. I just see him a bit more limited. Oh, you're surprised. We'll get into that. He only had 10 turnover-worthy plays this past season, so he is careful with the ball, but that also ties into the RPO system where he's not probably taking as many shots. And he's also a plus athlete runner, had about 500 rushing yards this past season. So I'm not out on Matt Corral. I do think he's going to be drafted probably round 2 or 3. I don't see him as the quarterback 1 in this class. I do have a few guys over him.
I told you guys last episode or a couple before that I think the Seahawks are going to end up drafting Matt Corral. It's not going to be in the first round. I think they'll draft him in the second round. I'm not completely shocked with his quarterback rankings. One, because I didn't do much evaluating on these quarterbacks to begin with, so I wasn't like, oh, Matt Corral's bad. He's not. I was watching Matt Corral yesterday, and he does have a lively arm. Like his arm,
a quick release.
His arm, there's zip on it. There's definitely zip on it. He has a quick release. I don't think his running ability is as great as Pickett's or Desmond Ritter's.
It's plus, but it's not great.
Yeah, it's okay. He has a thin frame. I think you're right. In the right system, he can succeed in the NFL. To me, I watched the game versus Alabama where Ole Miss got blown out.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Corral played a pretty good game, and he made some high-level throws in that game, despite the score indicating that Ole Miss got outclassed, which they did to an extent. Matt Corral at least didn't fold in that game. He was steady against Alabama, which is one of the top teams in the country. You could say the second best team in the country. I just feel like in this draft class, Malik Willis, based off the potential, is number one. Because there isn't somebody in this draft class that I look at like last year Mac Jones was. I thought Mac Jones was really good, and I was not concerned about him and him translating to the NFL. I don't see a quarterback in this draft that can do what Mac Jones did. And because of that, none of their, I guess, steadiness and ability to be good from day one is good enough for me to put them over somebody with a high upside like Malik Willis.
I think Mac Jones would be quarterback 2 off the board in this draft class.
No, I think Mac Jones would be the
number
first.
1.
No, he would be the
first
first quarterback out of.
I think teams are still taking Malik because of the upside.
Mac Jones would be the
And the
consensus
thing,
number
a big
one.
part
guy
about
in
it is
this
that
draft.
Mac Jones' numbers last season were
crazy.
outrageous.
Yeah.
So it would have played a huge factor into him getting drafted. That even
I know, but
best
Mac Jones had probably the best numbers in everyone last season.
Mac Jones,
which Trevor Lawrence was the
with
prospect.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Numbers doesn't translate.
Trey Lance didn't throw an interception.
As great as the quarterback
play for a
class
year.
was, he still was a top 15 pick overall.
Yeah, for sure.
We're looking at some
we
of these
had a
guys.
really good quarterback class.
My point.
None of these guys might go top 15.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I definitely think at least one quarterback goes top 15.
And I agree. I think that Malik.
We saw Daniel Jones go 6th overall.
If a team needs a quarterback, they will take a quarterback. I firmly do agree with that.
Malik Willis, he's my QB1, but I have a lot of concerns about him. One, I don't think he's that fast. I don't think he's as fast as Pickett or Ritter. I think Ritter is
sneaky.
Ritter's the best athlete here. I think he's the best athlete here. Malik Willis, I know that in Liberty there wasn't a lot surrounding him, but I really feel like it's going to take him a lot of time to develop in the NFL. And that's why, even though he has that upside, he has a strong arm, there's no doubt. But the ball, at least when I see it, it's kind of like, it's not, this is unfair. It's not like Josh Allen-esque. Like when I saw Josh Allen at Wyoming, the ball flies out of his hand. You can see it's just on a string.
I thought he has good velocity. With Malik
Willis, it's more, he has a power arm, but I don't think there's much velocity or zip on his passes. I
thought he did have.
And I'll say this. I think the two are synonymous. In my opinion, if you can throw the ball deep for yards, 9 out of 10 times, if you need to throw it in a spot with velocity, you can. If you have the arm strength to throw the ball 60 yards, you can throw the ball with pretty
because you could throw it 60
velocity.
yards down the field and put a bunch of air under it. You know, throwing the ball 60 yards on a rope compared with air on it.
But we've still seen some film with Malik of him throwing it 60 yards. And
his arm strength's not a question.
And it drops right in the breadbasket.
Yes, his arm strength's not a question. I think he also has good velocity coming out the ball. Like I've seen him make plenty of throws from the right hash to the left side of the field, fitting a tight window. I'm not really concerned. Like I don't think he's not a day one starter, right? I think he's going to get drafted in the top 15. Won't shock me get drafted in the top 10. I just think teams are going to be needy and they're going to be desperate for a quarterback, and we're going to see guys either move up or just stay where they are and take him.
My big thing, I'm sorry if you want to say something, but my big thing with Malik is decision making. We saw some times during the season where he's eyeing the defender, and instead of throwing off of him, he still throws the ball right to the defender. He needs to get better at decision making.
What team is desperate for a quarterback?
Atlanta, without a doubt.
I don't think Atlanta's desperate.
They're desperate.
I think Panthers at 6 are desperate because Matt Rule knows if he doesn't win 7-8 games, even still, they're going to miss the playoffs. He's probably going to get fired. But Malik Willis could possibly save his job if he comes in week 10, looks great with Matt Rule. You know, that's the only thing that could save him.
Panthers need no linemen. I feel like
what we're doing. I feel like Malik Willis is closer to Deshaun Kaiser than he is to any of like
the
top quarterbacks people want to compare his talents.
What I would love for Carolina is for them to draft an O-lineman in round 1, and in round 2, if they really want a quarterback, Sam Howell. I love Sam Howell's game, believe it or not. I think that you look at what happened with him during his time in UNC. He lost his guys in Diami Brown. He lost his guy in Javonte Williams. We know how I feel about Javonte Williams.
Mike Carter, too.
Mike Carter was he lost
4 players to the NFL last year.
A plethora of guys. And last season, his numbers took a drastic hit. And I can understand where his draft stock would take a hit as well. But look at every single game. He was swarmed by the defensive line. There was not a game that he was not sacked at least once. This guy has amazing footwork. His ball placement is borderline great. Sometimes he tries to play hero ball a little bit too much, but he always leads a wide receiver, can fit it in tight spots, is more mobile than what people give him credit for. I feel like for the value that you can get with Sam Howell and for the way that his draft stock took such a hit, if he goes to the right spot, he can be a franchise quarterback.
Sam Howell, to me, his upside is Baker Mayfield.
I've heard that comp a lot, too.
Which is fair because of the stature.
They look similar to me. Sam Howell, my knock on him is that he has this weird tendency to always pat the ball. And because of that, it made him late on throws.
Are you one of those guys that you don't like when a quarterback...
It's not that I don't like it, but it's like, okay, we're at the goal line. The play is a flat to my tight end. I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to tap it once. I'm going to see him run wide open on the flat. And before I throw it to him, I'm just going to go again and throw it.
One thing I'll say to that, and I don't disagree too much, but I would rather a quarterback do that than have happy feet in the pocket, like Baker Mayfield does. When the pocket starts to collapse, you see Baker's feet just start to go a mile a minute. I'd rather someone that's confident in the pocket, that has their footwork consistent, that yes, he's going to pat the ball. I don't love that. I agree. But even still, I would rather you have perfect footwork, meticulous footwork, as opposed to being in the pocket, really start to show your nervousness while having happy feet.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to give our top 5?
Yes, you can start.
Yeah, I could start. Should I start from 5? I don't want to. I don't want to get anyone's feelings hurt.
Start from 5.
Start from 5.
All right, my number 5 quarterback. I'm still kind of torn. Like, I don't know. I have these guys in tiers, and it's kind of weird just because we're only doing top 5 here. I'm kind of torn between Matt Corral and Desmond Ridder as my number 5 guy. We spoke on Matt Corral a little bit. I think he played well in his system. I think at the next level, he's going to rely heavily on his playmakers. Maybe down the line, he could develop into something more, but I think at least day one, unless he goes into a system that fits him really well, I think he's going to struggle a bit. But 5 and 4, it's between him and Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder, he has the size, 6'1", 211 pounds, started 4 years at Cincy and really helped this program grow over the last few years. They, when he first got there, they weren't as respected, and now coming out, they have multiple guys projected possibly going in the first couple of rounds of the draft. I really think he progressed a ton from his early years, freshman and sophomore season. He was a very inconsistent passer to his senior year, where this past year he had 65% completion percentage, 3,300 yards, 30 to 8 touchdown interception ratio. I think his processing is really good too. And we also talked about his athleticism, which probably a bit better than Corral's. I think at least in today's NFL, you need to have some sort of mobility, whether that is pocket mobility. Like, I think, for example, Mac Jones, we don't think of him as an athlete or someone who gets out of the pocket, but I think Mac Jones in the pocket has really good pocket mobility. And as long as you have one or the other, but I do think Desmond Ridder could kind of get out of his pocket and is a solid athlete, ran for 2,100 yards and 28 touchdowns in his college career. So we know he has the upside to be able to do it. Only had a turnover-worthy play on 2.3% of his plays, which was 7th lowest among quarterbacks. So he's someone who is a good decision-maker, only had 8 interceptions this past season. Averaged up a target of 10.6, ability to push the ball down the field. Can improve with ball placement, but I do think he's a bit more pro-ready than Matt Corral going into the season. I don't think he's going to get drafted into a place that's going to ask him to start right away. Like, I look at both of these guys, look at them as probably day 2 picks. Teams usually reach on quarterbacks anyway. So 5 would be Ridder, 4 would be Corral. 3 is Sam Howell. Now, Drew, you talked about him a bit before. I was pleasantly surprised when I saw him because coming into this process and scouting these quarterbacks, really scouting for the first time, I was a bit lower on Howell. I thought a few other guys would be over him, but he impressed me. He didn't have the best 40 at the combine. No, he was around 5'1" for 45 seconds, 5.1 seconds. He's 6'1", 218. But he was a really good athlete. In high school, he was an all-state baseball player. He had the all-time record for total yards in North Carolina as a high school player. So he came into North Carolina really being someone that fans were rooting for. He's played for 4 years, obviously, at his high school and set all type of records. As a freshman, he was phenomenal. 3,600 yards, 38 to 7 touchdown to interception ratio. And we'll be talking about, at least me, I like to see my guys go out, compete, and have success early. Because if you come into college and you're great, 18, 19 years old, I feel like that's going to translate so you have success early on in the NFL. Another great sophomore season when he had all those guys there with the Javantes and Mike Carters, Daz Newsome's, had a bunch of pro guys on there. And this past season, still solid, around 3K yards, 24-9 touch interception ratio. But what really impressed me, he upped his rushing total to about 800 yards. So while he's not the fastest guy, he showed the ability to, when the weapons aren't always there, and he did take a step back in terms of the talent around him, he was still good. I think he had quick release, had velocity on his ball, though he got through progressions better than Corral. But he's not quite in the tier of my top two guys. My top two being number 2, Kenny Pickett, and number 1, Malik Willis. I think Kenny Pickett's tape this past season is better than Malik Willis's. But when I'm looking at the NFL and how great all these quarterbacks are, Malik Willis offers me more upside. If I had to get a guy to start day one, it's Kenny Pickett. I think he has, very good processing. I think his arm strength is good, even though Malik Willis does have a crazy arm as well. Underrated as an athlete and a really good decision maker with anticipation. He showed me plenty of times being able to have touch on the ball, get it to really any spot in the field. So I have Kenny Pickett at 2, but if I had to start a guy day one, I would choose him over Malik.
All right, I do like the list. I have a few disagreements. I did a top 3, but I do have a top 5. I'll give my 5 and 4 really quick. I have Matt Corral at 5, and at 4, I have Desmond Ridder. Matt Corral, for me personally, is just a little bit too undersized. His arm is definitely lively, but I can't trust him right now given his size. And given the talent that he had to play, I'm not fully sold on Matt Corral as opposed to the other guys. In terms of his level of play and how he played, I think that he could have definitely elevated his play to a degree against one of these better teams. Now, I'm looking at Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder has really strong upside for me in terms of his athleticism. His decision-making could be a little bit better. I feel like for me personally, his ceiling could be what Dak Prescott really is and what Dak Prescott ended up being. That's his absolute ceiling. He has a great arm. It's just in terms of his decision-making, it could be a little bit better. And he's super athletic, can make plays happen with his legs. And I feel like that's definitely what's going to play a factor into him having any type of success in the NFL. Now, for me personally, number 3, I have Kenny Pickett. I have Kenny Pickett at number 3 because...
Whoa, sorry. Bruce Arians is transitioning to the front office, and Todd Bowles is the new head coach of the Bucs. Jeez.
That is pretty huge news.
It is big time.
Jeez. Sorry to cut you off there.
No, that's all right, man. That's huge news.
Wow. I'm shocked.
I don't hate it, truthfully. What more does Bruce Arians have to prove on the field? And he's getting up there in age, too. This is just one of those things that his time on the football field, I guess, is done.
You think Brady knew?
He had to know. And I think Todd Bowles is a good head coach.
I think so, too.
His first year with the Jets when we had a competent roster went 10-6.
Interesting. Leftwich is still there, right? Yeah. He's still the OC.
He's the OC.
Yep. So keep going on your...
All right, so number 3, I have Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett, for me, some concerns I have for him is that, one, he's going to be a 24-year-old rookie. And this was the first year we really saw him blossom, and he wasn't a Heisman candidate. He had an amazing season, had some flashy plays where he is now one of the reasons why he is the reason why you're not allowed to fake slide in college football. I thought that was pretty lame of them to do that, but it was one of the cooler plays I've ever seen. But being a 24-year-old rookie and your senior year being the year that you really break out does concern me. Now, you look at Joe Burrow, right? That's the one that you get thrown at whenever you're evaluating a quarterback that really it took them a while to get going, but were great. Difference is Joe Burrow won the Heisman. Joe Burrow won the national tournament. And he had the intangibles. He had the physical attributes to be a great quarterback in the NFL. Processed the game really well, which Kenny Pickett does have the ability to do. But I do have my concerns with him being a late bloomer. And for his draft stock right now, he's going to have to go to a team where he's going to sit for a few seasons and then have some type of success. I feel like I don't trust him getting older and producing on a football field. I don't think that he's a day one starter. And so let's be realistic. What's the first year he's going to start at? What age? 26 maybe? I don't like that personally. Now for number 2, I have Sam Howell. Sam Howell, I've grown to like over these past couple of days, and I understand that's against contrary belief, but I'm not overlooking the fact that he was fantastic his first 2 seasons at UNC. And I'm watching his tape, and I really do think he has great footwork, the best footwork out of all of these quarterbacks. And his ball placement can be great when he's not trying to do too much. I don't think that he is a day one starter either. I don't think any of these guys are day one starters. I want to get that out there. I believe that Sam Howell has all the intangibles to be a franchise quarterback. Ball placement, footwork, in terms of processing the game, decision making. He is, in my opinion, the complete package in that sense. But I do also believe that because of the hit that he took this season, that it affected his draft stock, and it's understandable. But he was not in a position where his team was anywhere in a place to put him in a place to really thrive the way that he did in his first 2 years. Now, for me, number one, Malik Willis. I think he has the highest upside, given the fact that he has the strongest arm, he has the biggest arm, the most athletic. Now, I don't mean to say this as I think he can be Josh Allen. I just want to compare him to Josh Allen for a second. Josh Allen was drafted on the premise that he had all the tools to be a high-level quarterback. And when he was drafted number 7, teams had their concerns with Josh Allen. They weren't sure, given the fact that he didn't put up the craziest numbers, still had like around a 50% completion percentage back in college. But he had the tools to be a great quarterback. Malik Willis has the tools to be a great quarterback. It's just a matter of him learning and trusting his guys. The way that the Bills put their faith in Josh Allen was a huge part in the fact of why Josh Allen ended up being the quarterback that he is today. On top of putting in the hard work, without a doubt. That is number one at the forefront. But you need to put time in with Malik Willis if you want him to be a great quarterback. Learning the game is extremely difficult. You can have the tools and eventually learn it. But if you learn the game and if you know how to process the defense, process the game, and the rest can come later, that gives you such a huge advantage. But when you have the tools, there are certain quarterbacks that you need to trust to learn the system. I think Malik Willis is one of those.
I'm not high on any of these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Agreed. No doubt about that.
Malik Willis, the upside thing, I think, yeah, he has the most upside. But that's because no quarterback in this draft you look at it is like they have insanely high upside. Malik Willis.
I really like Howell, though. I really do like Howell.
Malik Willis in this past draft with Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Jones would have been quarterback 6. You can argue quarterback 7 behind Davis Mills. Because of that, I'm just not super high on him. All these guys have their cons, and I don't even really want to give a list because I don't know that they're so close to me, at least, that I feel like if I rank them, people are going to get a bit annoyed at it. Malik Willis, I'm not the biggest fan of. Matt Corral, his size is an issue for me. I think he has the most lively arm out of all these guys. Desmond Ridder is the best athlete. He was in a pro-style system. For some reason, he looks up to Ryan Tannehill. So he knows he's not going to be the superstar quarterback. He's just going to run an offense, and he can do it effectively. Sam Howell, after his freshman season, he got a ton of hype. I'm not using those players leaving to the NFL as an excuse for him. Josh Downs is a great receiver who was a sophomore last year, put up 1,300 yards, and he made big-time plays for Sam Howell. Sam Howell does get happy feet in the pocket. Sam Howell isn't the best at handling pressure. He does make really dumb mistakes. I think he does have a powerful arm. I think he cocks it back way too much when he does throw a long ball. He does have a powerful arm. There's no doubt about it. To me, he just looks too much like Baker Mayfield to me. When I watch him, I see a more athletic Baker Mayfield. And because of that, I just don't know how that can be a franchise quarterback. And with Kenny Pickett, I tweeted out that I have a pro comp for him. And a bunch of people were commenting on that tweet. And they're like, everybody got it wrong. You know,
no one guessed it right.
No, nobody guessed it right. Kirk Cousins, Teddy Bridgewater, Tua, Matt Ryan, Derek Carr,
saying all the guys you
Ryan
love.
Tannehill, Taylor Heineke. To me, Kenny Pickett is Taysom Hill. And I don't know how nobody else sees that. Yes.
Break it down.
I think Kenny Pickett, I think he's a more polished version of Taysom Hill. There's no doubt about it. I think he has a better arm than him. But in terms of somebody who I look at and I feel like the athleticism is going to be there in the NFL. You're going to be able to run. But is he going to be making high-level throws? Is he going to be insanely accurate throughout the field? I think the fact that he does wear a glove might hinder him in certain type of conditions in the NFL. his hand size, he doesn't have the biggest hand. I think that's not as big of a concern as people are trying to make it out to be, but it still is a concern depending on where he gets drafted. If he gets drafted to a cold weather town or city, that's something I'm concerned about.
One thing I'll say is he did go to the University of Pittsburgh, where weather is a factor. So the fact that he still played well there.
He had the gloves.
Exactly. I still give him credit for that. That's why I didn't mention him in my assessment.
Taysom Hill, I don't think is a horrible, god-awful quarterback.
I just don't think...
we saw with Sean Payne, he was able to win games.
Yeah.
With no weapons. I think Taysom Hill, when I've looked at Kenny Pickett, I'm like, he looks a lot like Taysom Hill to me.
Well, is his arm Taysom Hill?
He has a better arm than
Taysom Hill. Can only throw 100-mile-an-hour passes. Like, Taysom Hill has no touch. That's my biggest issue.
He does have no touch.
Kenny Pickett completed 50% of his passes 20-plus yards down the field, which would have been like top 5 in the NFL last season. I don't see it. I mean, he had like 220 rushing yards last year. And Taysom Hill he's more of a rusher than a passer, I would say. He's more of a wildcat style of quarterback.
It depends when Taysom needs to do that, definitely. But Taysom is capable of running an offense and moving the offense with his arm. He's done it. I've seen him do it with the Saints.
I think Pickett just has much more. I think his arm talent is better. Maybe he doesn't throw the ball as fast.
I think his arm talent is better, but I don't think it's significantly better to the point that the comp doesn't hold true.